What's up, guys? DTMP drama alert. So this is an amazing story. I haven't had a chance to read it. I just read this part here, the caption. It says, this passenger saw a U.S. military officer flying coach and decided to thank her for her service by giving up his seat. So there you go. That's all I read. So you know as much of the story as I know now. So let's get into the story. It's written by this person here. I'm not going to try to say their first name, but last name's Rebecca, on January 8th, 2019. I'm assuming this is the military person over here. It is great that the world is easier to explore thanks to more affordable and frequent flights. But there is still a big struggle involved with flying. We can be stuck in the airport for what feels like days at times, shuffling from the security line to another in the departure luggage. It doesn't matter if you're tired of standing in line or not. There's more to come as you get to the gate. Once you get through the airport and onto the plane, there's another problem. Everyone is crammed into the aircraft like sardines in a can. Sometimes you are stuck on the plane for up to half a day, and it definitely feels at least that long every time you fly. One military officer knows the struggle of flying all too well, as they were making their way back home, but that didn't make the journey any easier. Instead of settling into the flight, the military person had someone come along and asked them to leave their seat for an unbelievable reason. Familiar flying struggle. Some airlines like to board and military personnel flying with them early as a mark of respect for the jobs they do. Members of the Air Force are often welcomed onto American flights along with first-class passengers, allowing them to avoid crowds of people cramming on board. One military woman had found her seat on the plane and began to settle in for a long haul as everyone else aboard. Unfortunately, it wasn't long before another passenger came along and disturbed her. The officer had been stationed away from home, and she knew that it wouldn't be too long before she could see the smiling faces of her family again. Before she got to see her family once more, there was just one more thing for her to overcome after several months spent on a military base. This long flight was the last hurdle to get over, and then she would be back home. All she wanted to do was wait for the plane to take off and then close her eyes. If she slept through the flight, then it would feel like it went quicker. Plus, she'd be refreshed with her family greeted her at the airport. Settling down, the officer had been permitted to board the plane before the other passengers thanks to the airline's policy. She had been fortunate enough to find her seat as everyone else was still lined up outside. The only people on the plane, except for the Air Force woman, were the crew and the first-class travelers. After finding her seat in economy class with ease, the officer sat down, but she knew there would be another passenger coming along to sit next to her shortly. Not wanting to be disturbed when falling asleep, the woman waited for the other passenger to arrive before getting too comfortable. What she didn't expect was someone to ask her to leave her seat entirely. The armed forces officer knew she had gotten the right seat, as she had plenty of time to find it while the other passengers, as far as she was concerned, she was definitely sitting in the place she had been altered by her ticket, and she began to settle into seat 31B. The rest of the passengers began to file onto the plane, and the officer knew that it would be long before they took off. After barely warming up her seat, a man approached her, but he wasn't in the neighboring seat. He was sitting in 31B. The officer knew for sure that she was in the right seat. That's my seat. This man came along and was telling the military woman she was in the wrong seat, informing her that she was where he was supposed to be sitting, although she knew he was wrong. She checked her ticket once more, and written clearly was her name and her seat. Despite having heard hard evidence in front of him, the man wasn't convinced and didn't seem to be satisfied by what she had to say. He apparently determined to sit in the military officer's seat, but there was no obvious reason why he wanted to sit there. Surely he had his own seat that he could go and sit in. Why was he trying to take this one? The view from the first class. It's not just the armed forces who are fortunate enough to board flight early. First-class passengers are also given the privilege. First-class passengers sit in the front of the plane, keeping economy class behind them and maintaining the sequence quiet. First class remains undisturbed this way, and those passengers who spent a lot of money get their privacy. From the first class, you can look all the way back along the cabin and see how cramped the people are in coach. Recognizing the sarcasm. Many of us know the great job our Army Force officers do, but not all of us are able to show them our gratitude. While many military personnel would be happy with a thank you and a handshake, one passenger on board the plane that day wanted to do something extra special. When they aren't in another country fighting for our lives, the armed force officers are at home helping to keep the country running. For that reason, one passenger wanted to show how much they appreciated everything the military does. The man was insisting the military woman had the wrong seat and even asked to see her ticket to make sure. One woman, Jessica Tice, witnessed the interaction between the pair, and she couldn't believe what was happening. It seemed like the military woman just wanted to be left in peace, but this passenger wasn't going to let that happen. He kept insisting she was in the wrong place, despite what she had to say for herself. Was this man picking a fight with the wrong person? All the military woman wanted to do was get her head down for a few hours, and then before she knew it, she would be able to see her family. The man was clearly not going to let her sleep anytime soon, and instead of accepting he had gotten things wrong, he began to dig his heels in. He wasn't going anywhere. Even though the officer was in the right seat, the issue was going to need resolving soon, and before she could call for assistance, the Marine revealed his motives. Jessica had witnessed the man's insisting he sit where the military woman was set, and soon became clear why he was making such a fuss. The man had been on the plane just as long as the armed force officer, but he wasn't another soldier. Instead, his journey began in first class. He had glanced back to the coach section of the plane and noticed the officer's military cap. From first class, he spotted the army hat and decided it was time he did something nice. The man who was traveling first class was trying to give up his seat for the armed officer, but had been doing a bad job of explaining his plan. Although she was entirely confused by his incident, she was in the wrong seat. She eventually understood. Gladly, she accepted his offer to switch seats and quickly moved from her place in coach all the way to the front of the plane. As she left coach, the man from first class happily took her spot in a tightly packed section. The woman was set in the middle of the row in coach class, but it wasn't long before she was headed to the first class area. Now she would have as much space as she wanted to stretch out, and she would get plenty of peace in her new luxury seat too. The man had made this uniformed woman's day, and he made sure she would be able to meet her family feeling as refreshed as possible. While he would be spending the next few hours feeling cramped, it was worth it. Jessica Toon was still watching the whole situation unfold, and she wanted to offer something to the man. She didn't have her own first-class seat to give him, but she passed a note forward to 31B along with some money. In the note, she told the man that he could grab a snack or a drink on her, but continued his generosity. He refused the offer. He declined her offer. But there was something Jessica could do for him: share his story with the world. Amy Adams, the first-time Oscar-nominated actress, did something very similar when she flew first class in 2016. She was born on a military base and confessed to the following passenger that giving up her seat to a serviceman was something she had always wanted to do. When flying to Detroit to Los Angeles, Adams flew in coach as a serviceman took her place. She said she didn't do it for her own attention, but to bring attention to the troops who serve our country. The man on board this plane wanted to remain anonymous and was fortunate enough to not be a world-famous actress, so he could. Jessica Tights shared the story by posting it on Love What Matters social media page. She wrote that if we treat others with the same respect the first-class passenger did for this servicewoman, the world would be a better place. And sharing the story, Jessica had shown how genuine some strangers can be, and the world isn't as bad a place as some would have us believe. Okay, the story keeps going on. I thought it was over. Whichever way you want to slice it, everything we do in life comes back to choice we make. This passenger on the plane had to make a choice to be unselfish, offer up his expensive seat. The female soldier had to make a choice to enroll in the first place. We tend to understate the power that lives within the memory of making decisions, because if it's made with the right condition, it can potentially change your life. Notice how we use the word potential in the sentence. You see, choices are key, but without a proper follow-through, you don't mean that much. The reason we respect the soldiers of America is because they don't just enlist to serve our country, they follow through and put their dreams in actions. As a result, she was rewarded with a first-class seat by a man who wanted to do some following through of his own. After you made the choice and you followed through with it, perhaps the next stage in that evulsion is where you find yourself. It's more than just a female soldier looking at herself in the mirror and saying, "I'm a soldier." It's about the discovery. It's about her discovering her inner spirit that lives within, because it's very spirit that helps her run these laps and serve time in the trenches time after time after time again. And once you've found yourself, everyone can see it too. So after this female soldier had made this big decision and followed through with it and found her inner spirit, now the time where she reaped in rewards. There you go. She got a reward for being an amazing woman. She finally was able to take a break from her service and hop on a plane back home, and that wouldn't be enough for her, but she got so much more than she bargained for. She never expected her reward to be a first-class seat. And to be honest, that will have made all the difference. A soldier's motive obviously isn't to receive medals or badges or even first-class seats. They serve their country because they feel it's the right thing to do. The truth is that everyone has their own specific reason, but changes are most of them aren't seeking out glory. And this is exactly why there's the one who deserves it, the one putting their neck on the line day in and day out, all for the betterment of their beloved country. Is that it? Nope. However, we do feel compelled to point out that not all soldiers return the same. Every soldier's service period is different, and some of them end up going through some rough trials. Some have witnessed the passing of their friends, or even friendly, I don't know what that word is, so sorry. These types of things can really stay with you, and for this reason, everyone must be sensitive to certain things around them, even when it comes to offering them a first-class seat on a plane. Here's what we mean by that. Some soldiers have such traumatic memories that they have trouble accommodating them to what we might call normal lives. we're kind of going off the story here. I'm just going to stop it here. If you want to go find the story, you can. It's probably not that hard to find this story. Go to Facebook, type that into the search, and I'm sure you can find the story. It's a pretty cool story. This guy gave up his seat for a soldier. Like, she probably paid like $200 for her flight, and he probably paid $1,000 for his flight because he was on first class. He gave up his seat so for a crappy seat, and gave her his amazing seat. So he lost like $800, but he didn't care because he did something amazing for a soldier. That's just awesome. Like, this man, I don't care what his name is. I don't think they even told us his name in this, or maybe they did at the beginning of the story. I can't remember. But he's an amazing man. Amazing man to give up his seat. And just awesome. It's just awesome. It just shows that truly there are people out there that give a crap and care, and maybe the world ain't quite as bad as we all think it is right now. It keeps getting worse, but there are some amazing people still out there. So what do you guys think about this amazing story? Comment below and let me know.